The Lange 1 is one of the most iconic dress watches since the brand's resurrection in 1994. With 2024 being the 30th anniversary of Lange and the Lange 1, it's a fitting time to review one of my favorite variations, the limited edition Lange 1 Perpetual with the pink gold dial. Today I'll be talking about what it's like to wear the watch and some problems that I have with it. I'll also discuss whether it's better than its direct competitor from Patek, the 5320G Salmon dial. Is Lange better than Patek? Let's find out. This video is supported by Legacy Watch Co. If you're looking to buy or sell a watch, do reach out to us. Enjoy the video. The Perpetual Calendar is my favorite complication, since it gives brands a lot of flexibility to express themselves. There's a lot of information to display, so brands can create something that looks complex, like this Vacheron 4300V, or something that's clean, like this Patek 5236P. In my opinion, the Lange 1 Perpetual is one of the best executed perpetual calendars to exist, being complex yet easy on the eyes. The Lange 1 Perpetual was first released in 2021 in a handsome rose gold grey dial model and a slightly more expensive white gold salmon dial that was limited to 150 pieces. The salmon was a bit more pricey due to the pink gold dial, and in Singapore, you were required to bundle another watch to qualify for it. The cheapest qualifier I saw anyone getting was the Lange 1 Moonphase, which was about 67,000 Sing dollars at the time, so you would have needed to spend well over 200 grand to get this watch. Apparently, the reason behind the Lange 1 Perpetual's existence is because collectors wanted a QP in the Lange 1 layout without being forced to pay for a tourbillon while they were at it. Rich people problems, I suppose. As a result, Lange designed a new caliber based on the discontinued Daymatic. The movement remains super complex, sporting 621 parts. But what is most fascinating is that the Lange 1 Perpetual and Lange 1 Perpetual Tourbillon are basically the same size. A mere 0.1 mm in thickness separates the two, even though the latter is by definition a grand complication. So what's the Lange 1 Perpetual like to wear? My opinion is actually pretty divided. I was lucky to spend a few days with a watch, and given that this Lange 1 Perpetual has been one of my bucket list watches to try on, my initial impression was super positive. I don't think it's controversial to say that this is one of the best looking watches from Lange, or any watch brand for that matter. However, after experiencing the watch a bit more, I've come to discover a few issues I have with the Lange 1 Perpetual. Since people seem to enjoy it more when I criticize a watch rather than compliment it, I'll start with the negatives first and talk about the many positives later. For me, the main drawback is case design and wearability. In the grand scheme of things, the Lange 1 Perpetual isn't actually that big nor thick, weighing in at 41.9 mm by 12.2 mm. Yet, Lange's chunky case design and long lugs make the watch feel and wear much larger than the numbers suggest. The heft from the white gold also means that the watch is head-heavy and occasionally slides around on my wrist. While a deployant buckle would probably help balance the weight, the default is a pin buckle, which I do question at this sort of price range. It sounds like something weird to complain about, but the watch also makes some very weird noises. While the rotor looks great and spins well, it makes a really weird and loud creaky noise. I can hear it pretty easily by simply tilting my wrist, and as someone that has spent over 1,000 hours listening to Spotify last year, I don't think my hearing is quite Superman level. I've tried my best to capture the sound, so take a listen. Yes, rotors from brands like Patek and VC don't sound great either, but I wouldn't expect this out of a 6-figure limited edition Lange 1 Perpetual. On a similar vein, I'll also add that the crown feedback, or lack of it, is very weird. It's nothing like manual wine Lange watches I've owned before. I've again recorded the sound, so enjoy the ASMR. I'll give the brand the benefit of doubt here, since I know from experience that Lange crown feel can differ massively from one watch to another. So to summarize my rant, the watch is a bit chunky and the rotor sounds weird. I've added some sensationalism for entertainment purposes, but on the whole, these are very small issues. Let's now move on to the good parts. As I mentioned earlier, I think it's safe to say that this Lange 1 Perpetual is one of the best looking watches to ever exist. Beginning with the dial layout, I love that the watch looks so clean despite the amount of information it displays. We get the full works, with day, date, month, leap year, moon phase, and as an extra, a day-night indicator. Just like the updated Lange 1 moon phase, the background of the display changes over the course of a day, going from light blue in the morning to dark blue with stars at night. In my opinion, this is the single best looking moon phase out there currently, and it complements the salmon well. Lastly, the dial doesn't feel cluttered thanks to the asymmetric layout, and always looks good since you never have hands overlapping another display, as is the case with most QPs. As for the salmon dial, I don't quite know how exactly to explain it, since it frequently changes depending on lighting and angle. Even though I'm shooting this watch with a proper camera and lens, nothing quite does the dial justice. All I'll say is that you need to see the watch in person under natural lighting, since it's one of the most stunning dials out there. Similar to Lange's silver dials, the salmon here is a bit metallic, and shows a sort of grainy texture under intense light. Other than that, a little pop of blue from the moon phase is awesome, and I quite like the red leap year indicator, although I know others may think differently. For functionality, I must offer a prayer to the Lange gods for making this watch automatic. The Lange 1 is my favorite collection from the brand, but boy do I absolutely despise winding these things. I'm pretty sure my fingers bulked up when I was daily wearing my Lange 1 moon phase, but exaggeration aside, winding these watches does become quite a hassle. With the Lange 1 Perpetual, we get an automatic movement with a solid 50 hours of power reserve. Honestly, I find the typical 3/4 plate Lange 1 movements so boring to look at, and would pick this case back any day. On top of that, I think the rotor looks great, and it sports a bit of platinum to improve winding efficiency. As for the calendar itself, setting is done through the pushers. That itself is quite normal, but the owner shared that he broke the watch the day he collected it, when one of the pushers wasn't engaged all the way during setting. Coupled with whispers of reliability issues I've heard for this caliber, I do feel a bit unsettled. But then again, perpetual calendars are generally fragile and prone to problems, as I've learned from personal experience. Also, it's possible that these are just anomalies, since I know of owners who have had zero problems with their watches. Although I was complaining about the crown feel earlier, I will add in here that the calendar jump of the Lange 1 Perpetual is very satisfying. It's again a weird thing to highlight, but unlike most perpetuals, the display on this watch jumps instantaneously at midnight. When doing so, you get a nice click and vibration throughout the watch, which is oddly essential. No, I don't have some sort of weird fetish, but rather I really dislike it when perpetuals I own take time for the indicators to gradually shift as you approach midnight. My old VC used to take until about 1 AM for all the displays to change. Ultimately, it's a small touch that I imagine requires some mechanical finesse to achieve, and makes a watch feel more refined. Finally, let's compare the two titans of Lange and Patek. I think there's some mystique around salmon dials, since brands rarely have them and typically keep it for the real special stuff. The comparison here is quite interesting, since the Patek 5320G is as close as you'll get to a fair and direct comparison between the Swiss and German giants. Both watches come in white gold, are automatic, and have almost the same complication, although the execution of the Lange is more complex. So how do they stack up against each other? I've seen the 5320G a few times at various boutiques, and I have to say that the Lange blows it out of the water as far as dial and case spec goes. I'm not a big fan of the lackluster salmon on the 5320, and elements like the moon phase are low effort, especially if you compare it to the Lange. Generally, in sheer looks, the German side just feels more special. Where the Patek strikes back is in wearability, as well as the case and lug design. The 5320G is 2mm smaller and 1mm thinner. More importantly, Patek is masterful when it comes to case and lug design, often making watches feel smaller and thinner than they actually are. For the 5320, I'm a big fan of the step lugs, which give the watch a sleek profile as well. When it comes to this level of luxury watches, I think collectors should generally look for something emotional. I mean, if you're already spending over 100 grand on a mechanical wristwatch, is there any need to apply logic and reasoning? In this case, the Lange wins for me since it just feels more special. I think that might be reflected by market prices too, with the 5320G Salmon trading at about a 40% discount to retail on the market today. A fun but slightly unfair comparison would be to stack the Lange 1 Perpetual against the legendary 5270P, which costs about 15 to 20% more on market. If you had $220,000 to buy one of them, which would you choose? A big thank you to Codeaholic for letting me wear and review this amazing watch. Do follow him on Instagram to see his insane collection. If you enjoyed this video, check out my other watch reviews and video podcast series. Thank you for watching.